and welcome back to Kickin with Javi. As your friendly neighborhood associate editor and bring your good vibes here at Apollo City Comics, I, Javi Martinez, will be interviewing fellow Apollo creators as they come on down and talk about their newest and latest greatest works that are coming to Apollo City Comics all through Kickstarter. So, on today's show, we have Jade Lowder here to talk about his newest and latest greatest book, It's a Horror Show number 4, The Specimen.
Hey everybody, my name is Jade Lowder. I am, the creator of It's a Horror Show, as well as a few other little titles and whatnot. And, I've been working with Lesser Known Comics for a while, as well as Apollo City Comics. And this is the second It's a Horror Show title to be under the Apollo umbrella that we're doing. So that's super exciting. Apollo's a really fun crew to work with. Very energetic and lots of cool ideas about how to make indie comics. So I, as a creator, I've been making comics for about the last 4 years, and before that, I was working mostly as a fine art painter. I have 2 degrees in painting, and I work, like, my day job is as a faculty for a college where I teach kind of basic intro art stuff.
Right. And that in itself already kind of like jumps into what I wanted to ask you immediately, where it's like,
Oh, cool.
Like, you've been in comics for about 4 years now, and I've always been curious, like, where you took the step from teaching to start making comics, and like how you've applied all your background as being a teacher to start applying it to your own work. Like, I've always been so curious about that.
Totally. Yeah. It worked really, really nice to kind of like get into comics. Part of being a teacher, especially in an academic setting like higher education, you're kind of encouraged to conduct research and to kind of keep growing, not just as an artist, but also as a lifelong learner. So back in 2021, I kind of hit a wall with painting and what I was working on at the time, just creatively. And a lot of it was due to my father passed away a year before, and that was like I don't know if you've ever lost a parent, it's a pretty big shock to your identity. And sure. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know that like painting was a thing that I wanted to keep pursuing, and I didn't know how I wanted to keep pursuing it. And I was actually seeing a therapist at the time to kind of like process grief. And, one thing that she recommended was, what was something from, childhood or just young when you were younger that brought you joy. And I was like, man, comics used to be a huge part of my life, and I kind of put them away for a long time, and I just haven't read, I haven't drawn, nothing. And she's like, well, what would happen if you just read a comic? And I just started with that. And then I just started asking myself questions. Well, like now, what would happen if I made a comic, knowing everything I know now, having my background as a teacher, as having a master's degree in painting, and all this like knowledge that I've accrued just about art. What if I took that and applied that to making a comic? And so I made my first one, and it sucks. It'll never make the light of day. I'm not showing anybody that. But it spurred on like, okay, well, what if, I applied the same rigor of education that I've applied for painting to comics. And so I started taking classes at the Kubert School.
Nice.
And learning from pros, and getting some first, some direct experience with people who are working in comics. So I took classes from some industry greats like Joe Prado, from Dan DiDio, and some other really cool folks. And that really, really helped. It helped me give like a sense of focus to what I was doing, understand narrative art form in a way that I had never understood it before, and kind of started rocking and rolling. And so the cool part about it too was at that time in 2021, my school was offering some like extra funding for teachers who wanted to pursue some online classes and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so I was able to get funding from my school to take those classes through the Kubert School, which was like, oh, well, perfect. This is not coming out of my pocket.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I was able to take a whole bunch of classes and really beef up my knowledge, from lettering to portfolio design to coloring and everything in between. And it really just made me feel like I was much more well-rounded in terms of storytelling and making comics. And from there, it's just been like, okay, now let me apply that and try making a book. And each book, I feel like is gotten better, and I can see the growth of my own stuff, just whether or not that's art or just the mechanics, like the technical stuff.
Right.
And that's been really cool, and it's the thing that's always driving me forward. It's like, okay, next book has to be better. Like it will be better, right? And I'm always tweaking things. But yeah, I hope that answers that part.
I mean, definitely. Like I think we've all kind of talked about it before in the Apollo crew of just saying that like you are definitely one of the more well-rounded creators we have on the team. Where not even past what you know creatively and academically, but just on top of that, like what you know in even terms of doing events and things like that. You do a good amount of events on top of
Mm.
it, and there's not many people out there who do as much as you do and also do events on top of that. And I'm sure it's like
Yes.
I'm sure we both know it's a lot to balance when you're doing all of
Oh
what we
yeah.
do and doing events on top of all of that. But I mean, I don't know if you notice, I kind of have it. Where is it? Right up here, the Baltimore cover that you
I
did. So
I saw that. I clocked it out of the corner of my eye when you put it up there, and then bootleg the split I did with Max Flowers. Yeah, that's super cool.
yeah, and like
Yeah, conventions are and art fests or anything like that is like another added layer of complexity. At first, I was like really sure I didn't want to do any, like
right,
because I was like, I don't know. I feel like not maybe a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Like who, do I have the right to even call myself a creator and stuff like that? And then I started like I made, you know, 8, 9 books, and I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah.
I guess I can call myself a creator at this
You're like, I
point.
guess so.
Yeah.
I definitely like I mean I definitely deal with a lot of imposter syndrome for sure, and like I think it's funny when some people can't see that visibly of just like, oh, this guy's got his shit together, he's doing it. It's like inside I'm sure we're all just kind of like, oh my god,
Mm,
I shouldn't be here right now. Like I don't
yeah.
deserve to be here right now, and that is such an intense feeling to deal with sometimes, and especially when you do events, like when you have
Mm.
even ones that don't go as well as you might like, and it's just that can really mess with you sometimes creatively. Like the has there been moments like when you do events where you kind of like it pushes you kind of into like a bit of a rut and you're like, ah, damn, that kind of sucked, or do you just kind of shrug it off and just go for the next one?
I mean, I think it's hard to not feel it because, especially because events, most of the time, depending on where you live and stuff like that, are pretty big financial endeavor. Like you sink a lot of money into doing like an event. At least I'm from Montana, and so any event that I'm gonna do, unless it's like maybe like free comic book day, where I'm not paying for travel or anything like that. It's just kind
Right.
of here. Other than that, I'm paying for hotels, I'm paying for all that kind of stuff. So if like I'm not selling a whole lot of books and stuff like that at the event, yeah, it can be discouraging for sure. But I think there's also like a trade-off of you might not do great on sales, but then maybe that means it's time to divert your attention to I hate the word networking because it feels like a very corporate like thing,
Right.
but just maybe it's just building your community. I think is maybe
Right.
something a better way to kind of like think about it, and making connections with other creators. I think has been a thing that has really been cool about doing conventions and other events, beyond just the monetary stuff that you would hope would come with that stuff. Like I did an event in Sacramento that like I don't think I did the sales that I wanted to do. And it was one of my first, it might have been my first convention that I ever did. And
Okay.
so I was like really green. And the convention, it was only like maybe its second or third year ever running. And so it too was like just kind of getting started. And I just don't think I did the sales that I wanted. But I made some like really cool connections to folks that like, I've been on podcasts together. We've supported each other's art online, and it's just like that stuff wouldn't have happened at all if I didn't go. And so I think that's sometimes it's a trade off of just like, well, sales weren't great, but I did get some really cool hangout time with these other creators, or inversely get to take a trip or something like
Yeah.
that, maybe. But I don't know. I try not to take it too personally if I have like a slow sales, you know, at any kind of con. But generally, I've always found something positive that's been like, oh, this was worth it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there will be a convention down in the future that like maybe is less on both of those ends, and I'm like, great. Well, it'll be a little kick to the ego,
Right.
and I'll have to kind of like get over that. But I think that being in the arts, a lot of what you do is just deal with rejection. Like you're constantly just applying to stuff and then getting rejected from that thing, and then applying to more stuff and then getting rejected for those things, and then you get accepted to that one thing, and you're like, all right,
And it makes
and it
all the
makes up for it.
rejections.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly
so
that.
I
I
think
think.
it's you just kind of get used to the overwhelming rejections that happen
Yeah.
when you're in the arts. Yeah.
I definitely think that's like just such a true statement in itself of just like you as an artist you need to deal with rejection. You need to accept that you are it's gonna
Hmm.
happen no matter what you do as an artist, no matter if you're a writer, a colorist, a penciler, inker, whatever. You're always gonna deal with people saying like, no, you can do better. And I think speaking back to how you said that with every book you want to be better with every book you do, it's very like it shows. You said mention it yourself that you see your growth. I think most people can see that for sure. Of like from the first book down to now the specimen, it's just fucking incredible. I think you're just such an amazing artist, Jade, and I was
Thank you.
so curious. I was so curious to ask like because we're talking a lot about experience and doing events and things like that like and we mentioned LKC. I was so curious as like as one of the remnants or as some would say remainders of LKC. I, like I was curious to see like how as you've kind of gone up throughout Apollo and like now we're working much closer between each other and like how
Hmm.
are you applying that knowledge from like LKC over here to Apollo and like why did you want to come over to Apollo and like tag along for the ride? It's just I'm fucking glad. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm like I can't say that I've like jumped ship entirely because I'm still very active with Lesser Known Comics, and yeah, Lesser Known Comics is kind of like in a bit of a rebuilding moment.
Right.
But we're planning a big upswing soon with Lesser Known Comics, so I can't say that I'm totally like jump ship by any means because I really respect and am proud of being a part of Lesser Known Comics and what Mark Bernal has kind of done with that brand and the kind of comic community that he's built.
Right.
And I know that this last year, I mean, it's just been a crazy year for everybody, and Lesser Known Comics like took a hit. Um, but like I said, we're rebuilding, and I think that like coming this fall, Lesser Known Comics is going to be back and more streamlined and just it's gonna feel like it used to with lesser known comics, which I think is gonna be fantastic.
Yeah.
In terms of like working with Apollo, I think part of that was just like, well, I'm an artist that I like working inside a community, whether or not that was lesser known comics or Apollo, and so yeah, lesser known was in a bit of a lull, and so I think it was natural for me to be like, okay, what's a community that I think is doing rad stuff, and it worked out really naturally that I wasn't necessarily just like, okay, let me just find somebody another group to latch onto. It was more just like I was already working on projects with Brandon, and it just became really natural. It's just like, oh well, would you like to do this too? It's just like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And I just started like doing more and more and more stuff, and that kind of led me to being just like included in more um, of the community of Apollo, and then boom, now I believe my official title is director of, or no, nope, that's it's definitely not director. What the hell is my title? It's I don't remember what it is. It's like design editor, editor of design, something like that. Um, and it's like, hey, that's super rad. But it was like it just a really gradual thing, and it was just like I saw the work that Apollo was doing, and I'm just into the books that and the messaging behind the books. Um, and then just the community. I like the community, and that makes it easier for me to want to be a part of the team and to help out where I can.
Of course. Yeah, I, I think that's just it's been so cool seeing the people from LKC kind of come over to Apollo, and like knowing that LKC is still rebranding and still rebuilding is very cool to just kind of think about how, as Apollo has grown as being an imprint underneath LKC, we're kind of going to be alongside each other, and that's going to be a really cool thing to see
Hmm.
moving forward. And I'm sure people like Brandon and Mark are just ecstatic about that, and I'm sure people like yourself and
Totally.
Max and uh, RD Murphy, I'm sure, are all super glad to be hearing about all these things going on. And
Yeah, I mean, I ultimately I think that I think Mark often refers to it as just like LKC is like a giant megaphone, and it's just helping getting the word about anybody's project out. I like to think of it as just like yeah, you're right. Apollo was once under kind of LKC as like an imprint, and now it's kind of on standalone thing. And as I'm moving forward with my own books, they're going to be splits. They're going to be both lesser known and both Apollo, and I like that because it's not just that I'm getting to utilize two different sets of audiences and megaphones in the community, but it's also like it's two different perspectives on how to make a book and two different processes on editing and stuff like that and helping to refine that book. And I think that for me that's the exciting part about being able to be in both camps is like,
right.
yeah, I love the communities, but selfishly, I'm like, they help me make
Hmm.
better books. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, I want to make the best comic I can, and through utilizing both groups, like the books are just going to be better and better and better because I've got the expertise of everybody involved in that process now.
Of course, like I mean, you're wearing the blue shirt. I mean, I guess he wears orange, but you're like Aquaman, just like merging the two worlds of LKC and Apollo together.
Yeah, there you
But
go.
I think like just even talking about the work in itself, like it's a horror show. Like I I I I don't. I think you might have seen that I definitely backed it for the Kickstarter for #4, the
Nice.
Specimen,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I got all the physical books for it because I've read them digitally, but I like to. It's hard for me to not have things physically sometimes. So I can't wait to have that in my
Totally get
hands when
it.
it comes out. And I've been so curious, like seeing your journey through each of the issues and how we've talked about the growth throughout each of the issues. Like, what has been some of the bigger inspirations when you came to this project? Because there's a lot of things going on. Like, there's punk rock, there's music, there's like a Scooby Doo like theme like story at some point, and like there's so much going on, and it all started, I think, at least for me, in the punk anthology when I read your story in that, and it's just been so
Hmm.
cool to see everything grow from there.
Yeah, it's kind of by accident, not really by like intention. When
I love
like
that.
the first It's a Horror Show was a mini comic, and it was just two short stories, and it was actually two short stories that I made for Joe Prado, for his class,
Nice.
and I got asked to do an art fest, and they're just like, yeah, bring whatever you're doing, and I'm like, I have a bunch of these old paintings, but I don't want to. I'm not painting right now. I'm making comics, but I'm
Hmm.
just making, sample pages. I'm like, well, I should really try to put together a book. So I made my first book just by myself, and I made this little mini comic that was a split, and I called it "It's a Horror Show" because I was just like, it was a joke on just it's a shit show because I was like, I don't know what it is. It's kind of horror, it's kind of comedy. It's just like let's just put it together, and so like the name is really "It's a Shit Show," but it became "It's
Right.
a Horror Show." And at the same time I was working on this werewolf book that like I had done like a one-page story about this werewolf, because I was starting to do like a Patreon, and I did this one page, and I really liked this character, and I was like, man, it'd be fun to do like a whole book with this character. But I didn't know what it was going to be or anything like that. And so then I just started writing it out, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool if he was in a punk band. And then that was around the same time that I put out that mini comic. And I was like, I could make this the second in that series, but make this a full and just do all of them as standalone stories, because that'd be kind of cool. Right. It made me think about the Jim Shooter quote: every comic is someone's first comic. Right. And I like that idea of like, you don't have to read any of my books in order. You could read them all out of order or just one, and you would still get the entire story. Like, sure, there are little snippets and hidden things that connect them all in a way, but like for the most part, the broad strokes of the stories, you can read them all separately, and that's totally fine. And that was kind of my idea, and that was as much forward planning as I had made. It was just like, they'll be standalone. It'll be called It's a Horror Show. The end. Right. And then I met Mark around the same time, and that mini comic, the first one, I had put in a shop out in Seattle when I was just out there randomly for a visit, and they agreed to sell it, and I was like over the moon that they would do that. Yeah. And Mark and I were just starting to talk via Instagram, and he was out in Seattle, and he went to that shop because he saw I posted it on Instagram, and he went and picked it up. And then the next day he was like, do you want to join LKC? And I was just like, hell yes. Dude. And yes. And then we've been like partners and making books ever since, which has been an amazing kind of like journey and process of doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, so like the series really just started on like a whim of just like random stuff. And so I kind of try and keep that energy of just like, yeah, it is just kind of like whatever I'm thinking, whatever I'm into, spur of the moment shit. I just want it to be, It's a Horror Show can be whatever I want it to be. I don't have a clear vision into the future of what I want it to be and stuff like that. And so, yeah, like the werewolf and his punk band, like make a lot of appearances in it. And then I use them in short stories too, because it's easy to have a cast of characters that you know really well and you know how to write them. Right. And then come up with a short story to fit whatever style you need to. And that's kind of what I did for the punk anthology. And for Bootleg, I was coming up with two different little spin-offs of right. the werewolf and his band. But then It's a Horror Show 3 was a complete departure. No werewolf. It was, the breakup is its own singular vision thing. And now the Specimen werewolf is back, and it's another one of his stories. And number 5, the werewolf will be gone again. He won't be in number 5. And then, maybe he'll be back for number 6. Who knows? And I like this idea that like It's a Horror Show can be whatever I want it to be. It doesn't have to be a singular set. It's this cast of characters every time. It's always funny in these kind of beats. I like to just throw. Right. I like to throw all of my influences into it. Just stuff that I'm into. I want to make comics I want to read and that I'm excited to make. And so that's kind of just what It's a Horror Show has become. It's just like the exact thing I want to make it. And sometimes that's just all over the place. And I'm cool with that. I think that is something that like some creators box themselves in with arbitrary rules. And it's right. Like, there are no rules. We're not working on the scale of like Marvel and DC, where you got to be really worried about like, oh man, but these monthly readers aren't coming back. And it's like, yeah, or continuity. It's like, no one cares. Right. Like, just make the books that you want, retcon what you need to retcon, and keep having fun doing it. And that has been my, more than anything, having fun making comics has been my like guiding light. I'm like, if I'm having fun with the book, then I know I'm, if I'm having fun, if I'm like really passionate about it, and I'm like, oh, I love what's happening right now, then that's good enough for me.
Right. I definitely think it, like, to that, there's so much I want to say to that, honestly. like, I think it's so important as a creator to want to create the things that you like to read or take or consume as a consumer. I think more than anything, we definitely can understand that of like you make your comics for people like yourself who want to have these wacky, funny stories and like that don't really have to connect with each other. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And it's just it's whatever you want it to be, and even to the point of how everyone like someone's comic can be first their first comic. I think a lot about how Tom King has said something pretty similar at some point in time where you said the hardest thing about writing comics is that you can build a three-act structure, sure, but every issue within itself should also have a three-act structure because there can be a person who picks up a random issue of Batman one day, and you need to build that issue in a way where it's like even for someone who hasn't read, like if they're jumping in the middle of the arc, make it somewhat accessible for them to still hop in and enjoy the ride, and that is something that's
Yeah,
super
totally.
difficult to do as a comic creator.
No, I completely agree. And I think that, when you're working on these like epic mega arcs and stuff like that, like I definitely see that. Like, yeah, I mean, each issue to have every story be a banger, it's not going to happen.
No.
You've got to have like a building, issue where it's just like, man, this is just about cranking tension, or this is about releasing tension. And so you're not getting a lot of story. You're just getting a lot of like, um, of the remnants of a story or something like that. And so I totally get that. But it's been a fun challenge to write 22, 24 pages or whatever, where I'm like, okay, if I'm not thinking big of this is going to be a graphic novel, this is going to be an ongoing series or whatever,
Right.
how can I tell a story that is engaging in 22 pages that is
Right.
like feels complete, and I think that it's a good writing challenge. I think it's definitely sharpened my skills of just like I know how to do that. And like maybe I'll have an idea that I really want to plug into the kind of bigger act structure, but right now I'm like it's hard enough writing singular issues that I'm like that's a good challenge. And I think if you can get really good at it, you're going to attract a lot of readers and whatnot. So for me, it's just sharpening that skill of like I just want to be really good at writing that singular floppy issue.
Right. I think even that in itself, like, perfectly leads into what I wanted to ask next, actually. Like, I was so curious because like, I've read your short stories, I've read your full floppy issues, and I was just curious, like, as a writer artist, like, what is your difficulties in, say, writing a short story versus writing, like, a full issue?
Mhm. Short stories, it's usually because I just want to put too much in it, and I'm just like I get too excited, and I'm like, oh, I want to include this and this, and I want this moment to linger, and I want that, and it's like, well, by the time you're done, a 6 page story has become 12 or whatever, and you're like, fuck, how do I condense this down? And so that's usually what like the problem is when it comes to just a short story, where whether or not that's 10 to 6 pages, is you're just trying to be more concise and shorten it down. I'm like, okay, where can I like merge things together, or can I trim the fat here, or without overwhelming a page. Like even if you're doing a short story, like yeah, 11, 12 panels on a page is still going to be too much.
Yeah.
So like condense, and that's tough. That can be really really hard to do. And so like most of the time I have to like sacrifice parts of the story and be like, okay, well I'm not going to show this. That's not going to happen in this,
Hmm.
or whatever. I just did the short story that is kind of the through line for the anthology that we finished, and when I was writing it, the original intention was that it was going to be 8 pages, and so I had, and it was going to be between these kind of like breaks in the stories, and I had them all kind of plotted out of like where it was going to be, and then I started like actually writing the script, and it turned into 12 because I was like, no, I can't tell it any more concise than this. If I
Yeah.
like try and like condense it, I'm gonna lose a beat. I'm gonna lose a moment that is a fun joke that I really want to include. But then I was just like, the other creators had like restrictions. I don't have any restrictions because this is my book. So then I just was like, fine, fuck it. It will be 12. And I kind of just like did it. And I had it where like 3 pages are at the beginning as an intro. And then there are 3 continuous pages at the end as like an outro. And then there's a
Right.
couple sprinkled in. And it's just like I think it works, and I think it's really funny and pokes fun at both lesser known comics and Apollo, which I really like. Um, and then the struggle with a full comic, um, I don't know. There's a lot of struggles with the full comic. I mean, writing is usually where I encounter more of the problems, but that's probably good because it's like in the planning stage. And once I'm
Right.
in pencils, I more or less have it kind of like figured out how it's going to work. Um, but when I'm in the scripting stage, it's tough. Um, my natural thing is to just put too much. Is because I'm like, again, I'm just like, yeah, I want to see all this cool stuff, and then it's like, okay, just separate it out. Like, what do you honestly need? And so
Right.
maybe it's always just a process of like simplifying the storytelling.
I definitely think like one even to that point, like I think a lot of the Deadpool issue by Jerry Duggan and Brian Posehn for one of their last issues, where Jerry Duggan actually makes an appearance in it, and like Deadpool kills him, and like there's a huge explosion and stuff like that. But Jerry Duggan makes a joke within the comic of like the fun thing about comics is that unlike movies or TV shows, we don't have a budget. Your creativity is your budget,
It's true.
and
Yeah.
I think even to that point of always wanting to add so much to your stories is just that is your budget, Jade. Like you have so much to say, you have so much to tell, and it's like the fact that you can do 12 pages and like I haven't gotten the chance to read those 12 pages for the found footage anthology book, but I'm sure like from what I saw of like the pencils and inks and stuff, it looks incredible already, and like
Thank you.
definitely I was super hyped and excited to see the zombie page splash, which is just incredible. And you got it on bags now too. So
That was a super super fun one to do. Yeah, we had done a tier where we for the Kickstarter for that project where we people could pay to have like me zombify them and put them in the book. And so when when I was like scripting it, that was like a kind of a challenge, just like writing it. Of like I knew broad strokes of like how they would be included, but like where um, exactly in the story would be the best to have this kind of big splash of like zombies to really show all these people who backed the project to that tier, which was like a lot of people. And then there was people I just wanted to throw in as like thank yous and stuff like that. And it turned into just this monster of a page that I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then I just started thinking about that Justice League cover, like Guy Gardner's like looking up at the
yeah,
camera, and I was just like, oh, I love that. I could just do like this top down zombie horde kind of
right.
approaching, and then it also makes reference to the Warriors movie poster of just all the gangs,
Yeah,
kind of going off into the distance, which is more really what the page kind of references. And I was like, oh, that'd be really fun. And that was one of those pages that I was like, I was trying to write it, and I was like, no, this one I can't cut this page because I have to do it for the backers.
it's too
But
sick.
like, it doesn't really need to be there story wise. But I'm just like, but it's really cool.
It's so sick, dude. And like you got it on
Thank
bags
you.
now. I think it could be like
Yeah,
easily put up as prints or pinups and whatever the case is. Like
that'd be cool.
it's just such an amazing page in itself. And like I think what's so cool, just even with the last episode having Mari and Willie on the show, it's like we're all kind of writer artists, and like I'm always so
Hmm.
curious, like people who do both, like how they balance that as a writer and an artist, and then not only that, but like when you deal with like writer's block, do you just draw, and then when you deal with like artist
Mm.
block, do you just write? Like, what is that balance for you?
Mm. I don't know that like I can switch hats when I'm having block. Like if writing isn't coming, it's not like I can jump over to write to drawing, because it's such like a it's just part of the whole thing. And being an artist, I guess I would just consider myself an artist first, but like, and then writer, because I have to I'm making books. But like, I would say like anytime I'm hitting writer's block, I'm hitting a block in the studio just in general. So it's just affecting all of it. And then same thing. It's just like if I'm hitting block with a page or something like that, it's everything. Nothing is gonna come easy at that point. And so it's just like, no, it's just a block. Um, but most of the time, there's good ways of kind of getting over it. It's something that I actually teach my students. We call it the creativity gas station. So like what you do is you create like three columns and you make like a list. And you when you're just in that moment of like I can't make anything, it means you're out of gas and you need to fill up. And so like you can have three things. The three columns are like in your house, like really close,
Mhm.
local, so like in your town, and then the third is like in your world. And so you essentially in each of those columns, the in your house or like right around you is like where are some things that would fill your creativity bucket of just like maybe that's watch a movie, read a book, go for a walk, something like that. Or if it's in your town, the second column, it's like go to a comic book shop, go to a bookstore, go to an art museum, or go on a longer walk or hike or something like that. Get out of your space. And then the bigger ones would be like, yeah, plan a trip. Maybe that is to go visit, like a bigger city or something like that and get inspired. And so it's like different ways you can fill your creativity gas tank so that when you are in the studio, you're ready and you're able to make stuff. And so I feel like when I'm stuck, I kind of like revert back to that. I'm like, okay, this means it's not time to make. It's time to fill up the tank. I've spent too much, and that's usually what it comes down to. And it's not always just like read a book, because that can be exhausting in its own stuff. Sometimes it's man, you just got to shut down,
Yeah.
and it's like maybe that is literally just take a nap. Maybe
Yeah.
that is, and that can sometimes be like, oh, you wake up. I don't know how many pages I've solved, like something that is not flowing right in that sweet spot of like I'm falling asleep and I'm awake, and then it's like boom, it clicks on, and I'm like there. That's how I would lay that page out. And then by the time I wake up, I'm able to go into the studio, jot it down, and it's solved. And that's happened a lot of times. And
Right.
so I think you got to just know what your body needs and what your mind needs in that moment. Um, and that's for me, that's always been the thing that gets me out of the blockage.
Yeah, I think like for a lot of people who aren't necessarily particularly in the arts might see what we do as say just like doodling or just having fun, whatever the case is. But it can be
Hmm.
physically taxing for sure and mentally taxing on top of that. When you like empty that tank of yours, you do really need to just take a step back sometimes and say, you know what, not today, and just like
Yeah.
and that's okay. You shouldn't force yourself to create all the time. I know that's a really difficult thing to like wrap your head around
Hmm.
sometimes. Like I have to tell myself that all the time, like almost slapping myself on the wrist like stop it, that's enough. No more today. Like I've personally set hard deadlines of like 8 or 9 o'clock. I'm usually done working for the day. I'm like nothing after like 8 or 9 o'clock. Like that is it. And I think a lot of that is just having to take a step back and just say, you know what? Like not right now. I need to rest. I need to
Hmm.
recharge. And that's super
Yeah,
important.
totally.
Like
Totally. I completely agree.
I think like always I we've kind of already answered the question, but I if there's anything you want to say more explicitly to this question, uh
Mm.
is when it comes to the specimen in particular, what do you want people to really like walk away when they read the specimen? Like what is like the big thing where you're like I
Mm.
really hope people like get this about it.
Oh man, that's a good question. I don't know that I have any like big takeaways. I guess I just hope they have fun. I don't know that I have any like big message. I think there are other books that like I'm working on or have made that I'm like, yeah, I have more more of a message maybe with those things. But I think the Specimen like came out of just like um, it was right after a couple of books that were just like arduous, and I needed just to make something fun, and it was kind of like a project I was working on while I was at school, and I just needed something fun,
Yeah.
just pure escapism. And so like more than anything, I just hope that people like enjoy it, and their takeaways is like, oh, that was a fun, romp, and they got excited about like some of the characters or maybe the references I made or something like that, or just the art in general, which would be cool. Yeah, I just for them to have fun is what would be my hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think even that in itself is just a great answer because sometimes we do take things a little too serious, and especially when we are trying to make art, and like even asking this question, it's never more so of like, oh, what's the deep message behind this
Mm,
story, but I'm always so happy to hear what people want people to take away from their stories. Like, I definitely have wacky stories for sure, and but it's always about having a balance of how you tell stories for sure. And if the Specimen is about having fun, I'm sure people are gonna have fun reading
yeah, it totally is. So yeah, that would be my hope
it.
for sure.
Yeah. But that was basically all I had for you today, folks.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. I this was super dope to have you on, Jade. I, you know, as I was saying earlier, you're one of the best artists that we have on the team for sure. Like, I
Thank you,
love you
man.
dearly.
Appreciate that.
Like, you're like I don't know if you remember the first time we had the first time we met was through a phone
I
call.
do. Yeah, it was a phone call. I can't remember if it was Brandon or Mark. I think it was Mark who was like, "Oh, you should reach out to this creator named Javi." I think it was. I think it was Mark actually. Um, and then yeah, we had a conversation just about like a short story you were working on, and just trying to provide a little bit of feedback, and yeah, and just
Yeah.
get it to the finish line. And yeah, I do remember that. Remember that very clearly.
Yeah, and it's just I think it's so cool and full circle to kind of see how like even hearing your story about how you kind of landed at LKC and Apollo is similar to my story of like landing here at Apollo, where like the very first event that I ever did is how I found the Apollo podcast page, and that's when they did the first punk anthology submissions, and here we are. And I think that's just such a cool, amazing full circle moment right there. I
Yeah,
like
totally.
I love working with you, Jade. You're awesome.
Oh man, yeah, same. The feeling is mutual, brother. Like it's always a blast, and you put. I know that you put your heart and soul in everything that you do for Apollo. So, I mean, it's cool to see. It's cool to see your passion, and then also to see your growth. Like, to see where you were at when we first started talking to like where you're at now. Like that's pretty wild. And then to also just see now all the books that are under your belt and all the cool shows that you're able to do. I'm constantly jealous of the cool shit you're doing out in New York, man.
Yeah. I mean, hey, we just got to get you out here. But we are going to
Yeah,
get together in
I feel you.
Baltimore.
That's true. That's going to be a blast. I'm super looking forward to Baltimore.
That's going to be so wild.
It's going to be crazy.
But if there's anything you wanted to shout out, Jade, feel free to.
Sure. Yeah. So again, it's a horror show. Issue 4, The Specimen, is live now on Kickstarter. It's only a 2-week campaign, so there is no time to delay. There's some really great tiers that people can back, including a variant cover from Robert Rath, who was one of the promotional artists for Goosebumps back in the 90s. And a good friend of mine, contributor to the anthology as well. You can get all issues of It's a Horror Show. I know I said that like you don't have to read them in order, but they're all a lot of fun, and are all little forays in different avenues of horror that if you don't like one, you might like a different story and stuff like that somewhere else. So collect them all and read all the different kind of wacky or very serious over the top thoughts I have about horror. And so check all those out. You can even get some books from Apollo City Comics that are on like a Jade's Picks is what I did, and I did the same thing for Lesser Comics as well. So you can get some cool books from some awesome indie publishers. and help support even more folks than just me. So yeah, head over to Kickstarter. It's a horror show for the Specimen.
Let's go. And Jade, where can people find you as well?
Yeah, the big one that I'm on most of the time is Instagram. So at Jade Lowder, but I'm also on Blue Sky, and that's I think it's just at Jade Lowder, bluesky.com, whatever that one is. I don't remember. If you just look Jade Lowder on Blue Sky, I'm sure you'll find me. And Facebook is the same, Jade Lowder, and website jadelowder.com. Yeah, I think that's the bigs.
Nice. And last question for you. Any events you got coming up?
Yes, three events this fall. The first would be Rose City Comic Con in Portland. That happens, I believe, September 5th through the 7th. I'll be there all weekend, selling comics, records, and other cool stuff. Then I'll be at Fall Con in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that will be in, I believe that's October 11th and 12th. And then lastly, I'll be at Baltimore Comic Con, tabling with Comics Wellspring, and hanging out with all the awesome creators that are part of the street team of CWS. And that is October, uh, what is that, 18th through the 20th, I think,
17
something
to
like that.
19.
There it is. Yeah, 17th through the 19th. That's it. So all those dates, whether or not you are West Coast, East Coast, or in the middle, I'm coming to a state near you. So come hang out.
You heard him, folks. You heard him here first, folks. Jade is coming to your city. Feel free to catch him all throughout the fall. He's an amazing creator. Catch him, Jade Lowder on Instagram, all that stuff. Kickstarter, get the Specimen, and that was Kickin' with Javi.